Matt Miller works for the mothership covering the draft. He writes for ESPN.com, contributes to a variety of shows, including NFL Live and Get Up. Thanks for joining us, Matt. At what point did you realize it was time to tear up your mock draft last night?
At 2 overall, so about 7:30 Central Time was when I was ready to go. That's, I know I'm not the only one, but we said all throughout this draft process, it's the most unpredictable year. I've been doing this since 2011. It's the most unpredictable year I've ever covered because we didn't know what Houston was going to do. And it's so funny. You heard from camps throughout the last week. They love Will Anderson. And I'd reported this. They had a grade on Will Anderson that was like perfect on your draft board. It's like a 9.0 or whatever scale they use. But then I even had someone grab me in the lobby the other night. It's like, they're going CJ Stroud. They're going CJ Stroud. And you're like, okay, I'm hearing both these things. They were all right. They were both right. They did love Will Anderson, and they did grab CJ Stroud. So at a huge cost, obviously, they paid a lot to do that. But Houston definitely set the mock draft world on fire.
Okay, why did Houston disguise this so much for so long that they wanted CJ Stroud?
There's no reason. There really isn't. When you were on the clock, and I think we've known for about a month that it was 3 weeks that it was going to be Bryce Young. So the only thing I can come up with, Dan, is maybe there was some legitimate, conversation up into the point of the draft starting. And usually what happens, the morning of the draft, you're finally presenting the plan to the owner saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. And things can change at that point. So maybe Cal McNair said, wait, I want both these guys. What's that going to take? But I do know the Texans had been laying the groundwork to move up in the days before the draft. So maybe they're also maybe they're smoking out leaks in this. They let Jack Easterby go. He was kind of known as a talker a little bit. So maybe they're saying, hey, we got a new front office or a new coaching structure, a new organizational structure. Let's find out who's leaking. So we're going to put this out and we're going to put that out and we're going to see where it's coming from.
I like what Arizona did. I don't like the team, but I like what they did. And they got the player they wanted in Paris Johnson. And then you had the Colts. They were staying there. They weren't moving up. It felt like they weren't flinching, that they were locked in on. Now, was it whoever was going to be available, or was it going to be we're taking Anthony Richardson?
I think the Colts were set on we will take whoever's available.
Okay.
We'll take one of the guys, whether it was going to be Richardson or Stroud, or take whoever's available. Hey, I'm with you. I like what Arizona did, trading down. Paris Johnson's going to look great blocking for Caleb Williams next year because I just don't know that we're ever going to see Kyler. Is Kyler the guy there? I don't think Kyler's the guy there.
They paid him all this money.
Oh, Carson Wentz got paid. Jared Goff got paid. I don't know that matters anymore. If you're not the guy, you're not the guy. You've got a new head coach, a new GM. We'll see. I'm rooting for Kyler. But the second that trade was announced, the first thing I thought was they're going to have a lot of picks if they want to go get Caleb Williams next year. A lot of picks. And so you have to start thinking ahead. Who's going to be the team that has eyes for next year's unbeatable generational prospect?
All right. You're first on the board with that possibility there for Arizona. And I was mentioning this. I wouldn't have gone crazy for a quarterback this year. If I got one, great.
Yeah.
But I know next year's class is always better than this year's class, at least in our mind. But it feels like there's 3 quarterbacks next year who are better than these quarterbacks or would be rated higher. So you're going to have Drake May, Caleb, and Penix at Washington they might all grade out higher than these guys.
Yeah, and there's always the unknown. There's always the guy that comes from nowhere as well. Maybe Quinn Ewers figures it out at Texas and becomes the guy. I'm holding my breath on that. We'll see if it happens. But you're right. I think with Caleb coming out of USC, there are fewer questions about him. Same with Drake May. Right now, after a year of watching them play, Caleb for a year and a half, there are fewer questions. Now, holes might get poked in them over the next 12 months. That certainly happens. But I can tell you, talking to scouts, general managers, even agents over the past couple months, there are a lot of conversations already about next year. And I always think it's interesting when a team sets themselves up for the future. Philadelphia has done that better than anyone. They do a great job of, let's keep an eye on the future. We want to always have 2 first-round picks if we can. And now Arizona's that team that is really set up for next year if they want to be.
The pick that bothered you the most last night?
I feel badly saying this because he's a good player, but Jahmyr Gibbs at 12 overall was a shock to me. I had him as like an early 2nd-round pick. He's under 200 pounds. He's a smaller guy. He's a lot like what they have in DeAndre Swift. He's a slasher back who catches the ball. He is a great receiver out of the backfield. He's a dangerous kick returner. maybe if you put the label on him as an offensive weapon, they're going to lose Jamison Williams to a suspension
But
for
why
a
not
while.
trade down, Matt?
Exactly. That's my problem, Dan. And they did it again with Jack Campbell. They took two good players at bad value spots.
Yes, you're right.
And running back and linebacker are the two most devalued positions in the NFL draft. And Gibbs is not Bijan Robinson. Let's just be upfront about that. Where you take Bijan at 8, you're like, okay, this dude, we've only seen a couple players like this before. Gibbs is like, it would be like drafting Jamal Charles. That's his ceiling. Best case scenario, Jamal Charles. Probably going to have a short career, but be a really good player in that span because of his burst. But you could have traded down. You didn't have to worry about the Green Bay Packers selecting him at 13. You didn't have to worry about New England selecting him at 14, especially with the way the board was falling, with good corners on the board still, good wide receivers. The way it was playing out, Detroit could have traded twice in the first round. It still got these guys.
He's Matt Miller, the ESPN NFL draft analyst. He writes for ESPN.com. If you were going to look at who missed out more on the player they really wanted, the Jets or the Cowboys?
Oh, the Jets. And this was so predictable. The minute they traded from 13 to 15, and everything you heard was they didn't want to do it. That was the last nail in the coffin. They don't want to do it. I love the chaos of the draft. So when you see the way the board's falling, and here come the Pittsburgh Steelers with a gigantic need at left tackle, and the New York Jets with a gigantic need at left tackle, Pittsburgh jumps one spot ahead and takes the last tackle on the last tackle with a first-round grade in Broderick Jones. So I think the Jets, I think they may have panicked a little bit. Will McDonald is a fine player. I don't particularly think he should have been drafted at 15 at 240 pounds, and especially when you drafted Jermaine Johnson last year in the first. Maybe he'll be the new Carl Lawson there, and people can replay this, and I'll be wrong. But it felt like the Jets got jumped and then didn't necessarily have a plan right there.
I don't know if Dallas got who they wanted, though, Matt.
I don't know. I think they wanted Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah,
I think
you
that
do.
was I think they wanted Dalton Kincaid. The room didn't look great when it popped up on TV. They didn't look like they were super happy. Mozzie Smith's a good player, and if he's going to, give Micah Parsons more clean looks off the edge, that's great. If he can stop the run in that division, which you're going to have to be able to stop the run in the East with all the weapons that are there. But yeah, that one felt like a team that probably wanted to be able to trade back after they got jumped and just didn't have time to do it.
Could everybody be wrong about Will Levis?
So how do you mean that? I had Will Levis rated 25th on my board, Dan. I thought he was more of a second-round pick than a first-round pick.
Okay.
So if I don't know which side, I would say I was on the side of he should not have been drafted in the top 5.
Okay, but Mel Kiper's shouting last night. Take him at number 2.
I love Mel. That is the beauty of evaluation is we can watch the same player. We could sit down together in the same room, watch the same player, and have different opinions. And I think for Levis, it's 2021. You saw the promise, the upside. 2022, I saw a guy who couldn't get the ball out. There were times he was just tight in the pocket. He's clutching onto the ball, afraid to make a mistake. So there's kind of that yin and yang. And it doesn't help when you hear things like, hey, he's kind of like Carson Wentz. And it's like, okay, well, which Carson Wentz am I getting? And it's like, yeah, that's the point. We don't know which player you're going to get. So could be wrong. This could be the motivation he needs. I always felt like he was a type A perfectionist personality anyway, to where I don't know that he needs a bigger chip on his shoulder. I think that already existed. And with the way that he's kind of been overlooked in this pre-draft process, but maybe it'll work. The Rams at 36, his offensive coordinator was with them last year. No team will have better intel on Will Levis than the LA Rams, and they could use a quarterback in the future. If the Rams pass on Levis, we probably know a little bit more about why he's falling at this point, whether it be the toe injury, the injuries he had last year, the 23 interceptions, or reports that he wasn't interviewing particularly well.
What about Hendon Hooker? When does he go?
So I think he goes early as well. So I'm a Hendon Hooker fan. I said on one of our things I would take Hendon Hooker over Will Levis, and I got mocked ruthlessly. So we'll see what happens. But I think that we see teams. Detroit makes a lot of sense if they want to go QB of the future. I still think Seattle is a team. Hendon would be perfect in Seattle because of the deep ball ability, what he does as a runner. He only threw 5 interceptions the last 2 years in the SEC, while playing in an offense that pushes the ball down the field. I mean, they're not just throwing check screens and dumping it off. They're attacking. So I think he'll go fairly early, especially with the report this week that he's going to be ready to go sooner than everybody thought.
Good to talk to you, Matt. Have fun tonight.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you.
That's Matt Miller, ESPN NFL draft analyst, contributes to multiple shows. You see him on Get Up, NFL Live, and he writes for ESPN.com.